It's no secret that Invader Zim is visually one of the most uneasy shows to watch. I truly mean that in the best way possible, as I think Invader Zim molded my love for horror films and video games that go above and beyond the call of duty to make me tense up in disgust and awe about what I'm looking at. It's easily what you remember the most when looking back or thinking about Invader Zim. Those moments of pure WTF energy that make you question if this was a show for kids or not. In fact, the show had quite the pushback from the network, Nickelodeon, for many instances throughout the show's run, but at the same time was able to creatively and sometimes directly in your face get away with so much. So I wanted to take a look at the show itself, how it was able to get some of those moments okayed by the network, and what pushback the show faced. So keep your organs on your insides and your eyeballs in your head. Let's talk about the struggle of Invader Zim.
So many dogs!
So how did we get here? By that I mean moments like this, or even this. Well, that all goes back to the creator of the show, Jonan Vasquez, whom I share a birthday with. That's not important to you, but it is to me. Jonan created a comic book series called Johnny the Homicidal Maniac, and if that title doesn't immediately give it away, yes, he was in fact a homicidal maniac. Shocker. The visuals evoke such a distorted view of something chaotic, something that some may find grotesque, yet it was gripping and had this pull to keep you engaged. From here, a spin-off comic series was created called Squee. It continued the darker themes and feelings that you'd have reading Johnny, but what was extra special about these comics in general was that it caught the eye of Mary Harrington, a producer at Nickelodeon who was looking for the next slightly edgier cartoon for the network. She was hooked on the comics based on the visuals and characters themselves and contacted Jonan, giving him a chance to pitch a new animated series for Nickelodeon. And with having no experience dealing with animation, he said yes, and Invader Zim would be that pitched show. The idea for exactly what Invader Zim would be took him 1 hour before he knew this was the direction he wanted to go. But this journey wasn't easy beyond this point. His origins and storytelling mixed with his visuals are distinctively horrifying in the best of ways, but maybe not so much to a kid's show, leading to a lot of pushback from Nickelodeon on a constant basis. Episodes would constantly have scenes either reworked or cut in general in order to make the episode viable for network play. The relationship between the network and those working on Invader Zim would be described as a little dysfunctional. There was just a conflict in personalities, intentions, and modus operandi. The reality was just not a great fit, and yes, it was a problem. These statements come from writer of the show, Eric Trueheart. While a lot of moments in the show were completely scrapped or cut from the final product, there were some moments that they ended up keeping in the final product, but in a workaround way that made it okay for the censors and made it more horrific for the mind. Sometimes not showing and implying the horror is scarier for your mind to fill in those gaps of what you don't see. So the subtlety, or the lack thereof, is what ultimately gave the show its specific uniqueness. On top of all of the weird you still get to see on screen. But what would be some of those moments or workarounds that caused the team working on Invader Zim to clash constantly with the network? Let's take a look.
Zim, the green guy, will return. We warned ya. He's short, he's green, he's back. Invader Zim.
So there was quite the amount of stuff cut for time or cut for not being suitable for the network, and I can't really show you what those ideas were. It would just be me telling you what they are. So instead, let's take a look at what was able to get through after some workarounds from the Invader Zim crew. These examples can be found as quickly as the first episode of the show, The Nightmare Begins, with a blink and you'll miss it moment where inside of Dib's fridge there is a milk carton on it with some slightly legible text that reads, "Rob Hummel is meat." Rob Hummel is one of the show's writers, but originally the milk carton was going to consist of a young girl with "Find Me" written on it, in reference to missing persons being advertised on milk cartons starting in the 1980s, called the Missing Children's Milk Carton Program. Nickelodeon wasn't too fond of having this, regardless of how quickly in the shot it would be, so it was changed to then reference Rob. The episode Parent-Teacher Night featured a few moments with Gurr in which what he was watching on TV needed to be changed, from the cartoons he was watching originally being that of 40s cartoons featuring drink drinking, smoking, and weapons all on display. But of course, this wasn't going to be able to slide. But even as something as small as the word diarrhea being shown on the screen needed to be changed to a red color instead of the brown color it originally was, because Nick didn't want the word to relate closer to the color of what the subject matter actually is. Replacing the content on the screen in general was a bunch of random things that is too quick and too much for one to comprehend what is being shown, and we also get stuff like this.
My spine!
Yeah, that's one way to sell you some aspirin. In Walk of Doom, we get to see an example of how the relationship sometimes would be between those working on the show versus the network and their demands. This came from a sign that said, "Welcome to Mexico," as Zim exited a taxi at the end of the episode. This would be changed to say carne, the Spanish word for meat, as Nickelodeon found that the "Welcome to Mexico" sign mixed with the visuals on screen offensive regardless of Jonan's background. The crew wanted to make this feel offensive in pursuit of Nickelodeon letting them use their original idea, but Nick approved this. In Bestest Friend, the character of Keith was planned to land on some power lines after falling off of the roof, leading him to be electrocuted. Now, while characters being electrocuted seems like a staple cartoon trope of bygone years, in more modern times this was significantly toned down, especially by Nickelodeon, who would consider this as an imitatable act. So in order to work around this, the crew had a few ideas of how to have Keith get hurt in pretty bad ways, like him getting hit by a car and mangled all up from it, which yeah, Nickelodeon didn't like that either. But what they did do is ultimately more genius, and a moment where we really get to see the implied horror aspect of the show blossom from. Keith does end up falling off of the roof into some power lines, but all we get is a continued view from the rooftop as he falls, and then an explosion with a torturous scream from Keith. It's about your mind filling in the gaps of what you think just happened. So with that episode and the instance in Gameslave 2 where Iggins was shown or implied to be killed off, they were forced to find ways to make it show that this was not the case somehow by adding voice lines or extra scenes to prove all is okay, with Iggins literally bursting out of the elevator wreck accompanied with a title card and a guitar riff. This was all added in after the elevator gets cut and we see a title card saying "The End," before we fade back to an extra scene depicting his survival. Obviously, Nickelodeon wasn't a fan of any character being killed or implied that they were being killed. So during these moments where there wasn't an easy workaround and there needed to be some sort of compromise, the crew would do something like at the end card that they would say no characters were harmed in the episode, even if they clearly were. The back and forth between Nick and the Invader Zim crew was always this constant battle of you can't do this and you have to change that. And with the creators' visions always being tweaked, the crew found fun ways to poke back at Nickelodeon, whether it was somehow still getting away with some pretty messed up things, just having to go about them extra creatively to get past the censors, or they would constantly and directly put it in the viewer's face through the character of Nick, reflecting the happier tone that Nickelodeon wanted infused in all of their cartoons and to be more appealing to a wider audience. The network wanted more Rugrats type of shows rather than something like an Invader Zim sharing the same network. There were smaller things like in Door to Door where some kids were going to be eating cockroaches, this was changed into them eating meat instead, but some roaches can still be seen in the frame to convey the uncomfortable, grotesque nature of the situation. In Battle of the Planets, the car pileup was changed from being on fire to just not being on fire. In Future Dib, the perpetual energy generator was supposed to explode into a mushroom cloud, but instead just continues on to open a space-time rift. Sometimes the crew and Nickelodeon agreed on a few things, like in the episode Hobo 13, where the character of Scooge would have to eat his own skin to survive, but both groups here found this to be a bit too far and just downright disturbing. Due to real-life events, a few things in the show would be changed or decided against, like the design of the character Dib, who wears a black trench coat, which Jonan fought for not changing the character at all, especially with the amount of times Nickelodeon pushed for Dib to not be a main character, or to lighten him up a bit. With other tragedies, a whole ending was redone after airing one time on air showing New York getting turned into rubble, as well as an explosion at one point changing from red and orange and yellow to a green explosion. Another big thing that Jonan really wanted to add into the show was blood splatters within different and more violent scenes, specifically in the Bestest Friend episode, but technically a more unsettling image would be left in various episodes of Invader Zim, leaving a fun, almost creepypasta-esque hidden image to find. Bloody Gur. Yes, this image of Bloody Gur is real and made its way to television unnoticed by the network on a number of occasions. Originally, the concept was never intended to be included in an episode of the show, as they all knew it would be rejected. But since it was never handed to Nickelodeon for approval, there was not really a no ever given. So Chris Graham, an illustrator on the show, and director Steve Russell were able to sneak just a small singular frame of this image into the episode Bad Bad Rubber Piggy. Now, the only way to have caught it is if you think you saw something and claim it to be there. Later on in interviews, this would be proven as a true thing hidden within the episode, sparking so many to try and pause it at the exact frame to get the image of Bloody Gur, which, when you see it, it is extremely faint and barely able to be made out. No wonder this was snuck past Nickelodeon executives and it wasn't easily caught by the masses either. But this whole thing became a lot more fun once it was revealed that this image of Bloody Gur was put into random points hidden within the last 14 episodes of the show. The Bloody Gur was the single frame drawing that Chris Graham drew and I was putting into the show at random points hidden within things. It is very hard to make out, and I am not telling where or when those frames are. You have to be a master to see Bloody Gur even with a frame-by-frame VCR. If anyone finds it, let me know. He is in several places through the last 14 episodes. Nickelodeon was completely unaware to this, and it became a scavenger hunt after it was confirmed to be real for fans to go and find these frame-perfect moments to see Bloody Gur. In fact, what I do find pretty interesting is that after the show was over and Nickelodeon found out about this slipping past them and put into broadcast, they didn't really care, as it was too quick and so faint that there would be no way a kid would even notice it in the first place. So this standalone PNG of Bloody Gur is a legit real image that made it into episodes after all, as a nice last laugh from the crew and something for fans to hunt for and speculate on for searching frame by frame through those 14 episodes. A nice little extra piece of legacy that the show was able to leave behind.
Let's make biscuits!
The show stars Zim in the role of Zim, an alien bent on taking over the Earth.
Creator Jonan Vasquez based the show on real-life experience.
In the end, Invader Zim went on to become a cult classic for many who were brought up with it being on air, as well as the rise in popularity it had in the later 2000s, early 2010s, with fashion thanks to places like Hot Topic, which helped parade the popularity of Invader Zim even further, even if it had ended its official premiere of the remaining 6 episodes back on TV in 2006. Although with the ratings of the show being what is to be believed the ultimate downfall of it, it was surprisingly and genuinely fun to have a sequel movie released in 2019, as Nickelodeon was having some legacy sequels to movies being released on streaming services like Netflix. Enter the Florpus was a nice throwback and really just gave fans of Invader Zim one last satisfying ride in this messed up world Jonan created for us. I think for kids media, there is room for horror shows or scarier shows, something that challenges your visceral response. Without shows like Invader Zim, I may not have found my love for grotesque bloody horror movies, or from Are You Afraid of the Dark to my love of tension-building horror, with a sense of helplessness. Growing up, the media you're surrounded by shapes and molds a lot of your taste into what you end up having a like or dislike for. While yes, there are moments in Invader Zim that make me question if I should have seen that at a younger age or not, the show was something special that was able to capture an entire generation with wonder and disgust, and I mean that in a good way. Tell me your thoughts on Invader Zim in the comments below. Were you affected by it at a young age? Did it help build your enjoyment of the offbeat path of horror entertainment? Did it make you want to skateboard? Yeah, that's right, skateboard. So while this isn't a sponsor, for transparency, I want to tag this as such, but a lot of people have reached out about the skateboards I have and have shown off, from all the Pokemon ones to the SpongeBob board, but these were all done by my good buddy Bear Walker. He creates handcrafted skateboards that I consider beautiful works of art to hang on my wall, but they are fully functional and you can ride them still. However, the reason I am bringing this up is because Bear Walker often collabs with really cool brands and companies, from Pokemon to Marvel to DC and now even Nickelodeon, like that SpongeBob board. But this by far or maybe what I consider Bear's best work yet, the Invader Zim board, which I thought of no better video to show you guys this amazing board from Bear Walker that he sent over. These are really cool collector's pieces that you can check out through Bear's website linked below, and there will be some more amazing designs with cool collaborations coming all the time. And the Invader Zim board is a limited time drop with only 175 boards made in the entire world. So if you are interested, go check it out. Again, this isn't a sponsor. I am not making a penny off of this. I just love Bear's work, and as a friend, I wanted to show off something I thought that you all would find pretty cool as well, so check them out. Thanks so much for watching. Make sure to hit the like button and subscribe with notifications on for more content like this. Click the join button, become a member to help support the channel. Follow me on Twitter, and I'll be back soon with another video, but until then, later.